The story begins in the year 2100 when Earth has been completely devastated. A mysterious man wearing a cape flies over the ruins of a city on a fighter jet. With a determined expression, he says he has finally found the person he was searching for and immediately jumps from the aircraft. On a destroyed street below, a young man runs for his life, desperately calling for help as terrifying creatures chase him. A giant monster appears behind him while another blocks his path. Surrounded and helpless, he falls to the ground and begs for someone to save him. Looking at a broken family photo, he wishes that those responsible for destroying the world would be punished for what they did to humanity. Just as the monsters are about to attack, a beam of light descends from the sky and strikes them. The white-haired man arrives and apologizes for being late. Confused, the young survivor asks who he is. The hero answers only with a confident look. The boy, relieved, asks if humanity can finally reclaim its world. The hero nods and embraces him, but the survivor is already mortally wounded. He thanks his savior with a smile before collapsing lifelessly. As the white-haired man stands silently beside the body, another man wearing a lab coat arrives and asks if he came too late. The hero explains that the boy was the last survivor in the area. Looking at him angrily, he listens as the scientist declares that humanity has reached its end. The story then explains that pollution gave birth to mutant creatures known as corruptors. These monsters possess extraordinary regeneration abilities and relentlessly attack humans. Even humanity's strongest weapons could not stop them, so scientists began conducting experiments to fight back. The scientist questions the purpose of continuing when no one is left to save. However, the protagonist insists that something is still worth preserving. When Kagura asks if he believes survivors remain, Jin says no. Instead, he is thinking about the future. Jin asks whether the nanomachines created by his friend can restore the environment. These nanomachines can not only neutralize the monster's regeneration, but also begin healing the entire planet. He believes Earth can one day recover its former beauty and that a new civilization will eventually rise. Although Kagura considers the idea an impossible fairy tale, he accepts the challenge. As Jin walks down a dark corridor, he remains determined, believing even the smallest chance of success is worth pursuing. Deep underground, a secret research facility is prepared for a massive experiment. The white-haired warrior enters a capsule filled with green light while Kagura activates the system. Wondering if this plan can truly save the future, the scientist watches as the machine begins its process. The system announces the start of the hero's deep sleep. Years pass while monsters continue to dominate the ruined world. After 153 years, Earth still appears as a polluted red sphere from space. After 974 years, mutants still roam abandoned streets. More than 1,300 years later, toxic fog begins to disappear. By 8,400 years, Earth regains its bright blue appearance. After 30,000 years, new mutant species emerge. At 84,000 years, forests cover the remains of ancient human cities. Eventually, animal life returns to a completely restored planet. After 100 million years, the system confirms the awakening sequence. At that moment, a small girl with animal-like ears runs through the ancient facility, fleeing from danger. Alongside two other beast children, she desperately escapes from a shadowy monster pursuing them. The girl wonders if the savior truly exists, and her friend confidently says he does. Knowing their lives depend on finding him, she clutches her necklace and silently prays for the guardian god to save them. The children finally reach a massive door, believing the protector is behind it. After struggling to open it, they discover what appears to be an empty dead end. Their hope fades as they realize their plan may have failed. Suddenly, the shadow beast catches up to them. Frozen with fear, they watch as it raises its claw to attack. In a final desperate cry, the young girl calls for the guardian god and closes her eyes. At that instant, the glass of a nearby capsule begins to crack. Powerful energy leaks from within, and a burst of light erupts from the container. The awakened hero emerges and strikes the monster directly. The children watch in amazement as the savior says that believing in that possibility was always worthwhile. Stepping onto the floor after his endless slumber, the white-haired warrior declares that he never lost faith in humanity's future. He then notices that the supply box prepared by his friend functioned perfectly. Opening it, he finds his clothes preserved exactly as they were before he entered his long sleep. The young man checks the monitors and realizes that 100 million years have passed since he entered his deep sleep. He notices that much of the data has been lost, but is surprised to see that the underground shelter remains intact. Finding a tech injector, he concludes that the nanomachines helped preserve the facility. Holding a message cube, he wants to learn what happened to Earth during his absence. Turning to the beast children, he asks them to explain everything. The children are shocked when they realize the warrior had been sleeping without clothes all that time. After getting dressed, the hero puts on his gloves and long coat, deciding that the outfit outfit suits him perfectly. The massive metal doors slowly open, revealing bright sunlight outside. Accompanied by the children, the white-haired man steps out of the shelter and shields his eyes from the sun. Looking around, he is stunned by the new world before him. A vast green paradise stretches across the landscape. Reflecting on the changes, he realizes Earth has become completely unrecognizable after 100 million years. As he observes the scenery, the little girl once again calls him the guardian god and excitedly asks him to follow her through the open fields. Watching the children, Jin begins wondering about their origins. Humanity should have vanished long ago, so he questions whether they are truly human or creatures that evolved to resemble humans over countless years. He concludes that nanomachines likely influence their language and realizes he has not introduced himself yet. The hero introduces himself as Shido Jin. The girl introduces herself as Hakama Phil. The chubby boy says his name is Dampo, and the cat boy introduces himself as Shandy. When Jin asks where they are going, Hakama explains that they have almost reached their destination. She then asks him to defeat the corruptors, surprising Jin because he recognizes the ancient name immediately. Suddenly, Shandy panics after noticing something terrible ahead. In the distance, the children's village is engulfed in flames beneath a cloudy sky. The children desperately run toward the burning settlement, calling for their parents while Jin attempts to stop them. Carefully observing the situation, Jin realizes the danger is real. The village is protected only by crude wooden barricades. As flames consume the structures, he senses the suffering of the people and concludes that this new civilization is far less advanced than expected. Hakama suddenly stops and freezes. An elderly woman is bravely fighting a giant insect monster to defend the village. Struggling against the creature, she asks why the children returned to such a dangerous place. From a distance, Jin studies the monster and wonders if it is truly one of the original corruptors. The creature looks identical to the monsters from his era, immediately putting him on guard. At that moment, Hakama begins glowing with green energy and declares that she will save everyone. Wanting to confirm his suspicions about the powers of these new beings, Jin decides to act. With a swift movement, he delivers a powerful strike that sends the monster flying. He carefully catches the elderly woman and politely says, "Excuse me," before taking over the battle. Hakama gathers her power and Jin encourages her to attack. The young girl concentrates an enormous amount of energy and launches a massive fireball. The attack hits the monster directly, creating a huge explosion and completely destroying the creature's head. Examining the body, Jin notices that its regeneration has been disabled by nanomachines. Curious, he wonders how the girl was able to use such technology since compatibility should be required. He asks whether everyone can use this power, but the old woman explains that only a few individuals possess the ability. The villagers call this power divine power, allowing Jin to finally understand the situation. Soon, several villagers arrive. An older boy scolds the elderly woman for returning to the village. Sadly, she explains that their home is already lost. She also reveals that the monster they defeated was only a newborn hatchling, making the situation far more serious. The village leader explains that the parent creature is much stronger and that a swarm of hatchlings will soon attack. However, a young warrior suddenly appears and tells everyone not to lose hope. Confidently holding his spear, he claims he can defeat all the monsters by himself. Relieved, the elderly woman asks about the other villagers, and he assures her that everyone has safely reached the shelter. Moments later, Hakama's father rushes forward and embraces his daughter, admitting he was worried about her disappearance. The girl confesses that she went to the sealed door, shocking the elderly woman with her recklessness. Soon, Shandy points at Jin and declares that he is the legendary guardian god from ancient stories. The young warrior dismisses the claim, pointing at Jin and saying he belongs to an inferior race without animal powers. He insists that Jin's earlier victory was only luck. Hakama immediately defends her savior, but the arrogant warrior simply laughs and boasts that he could easily defeat those weak hatchlings as well. At that moment, the white-haired man steps forward and asks everyone to listen carefully. However, the young warrior raises his spear and warns that the village does not need help from a weak outsider. Ignoring him, the boy walks past and says he will deal with the giant beast himself. An older villager asks where he is going, and the boy confidently replies that he is heading out to kill the monster. Acting fearless, he tells everyone to stay behind while he handles the situation alone. The elderly woman becomes furious, saying the foolish boy would survive only if he ran away. Meanwhile, Jin silently observes everyone's behavior. The woman then thanks him for helping and asks him to escort the children to the shelter. To everyone's surprise, Hakama declares that she will follow the warrior, even if it puts her life at risk. Jin immediately refuses to run and decides to lead the battle himself. Seeing his determination, the girl smiles smiles, inspired by the pride and confidence of the legendary hero. Jin states that he will not stand by while people call him weak and then rush off to get themselves killed. Soon, a gigantic creature covered in horrifying eyes emerges from the shallow water. The young feline warrior clenches his fists and steps forward, drawing the monster's attention. Lightning surrounds his body as he proudly declares himself the protector of the village. Pointing his spear at the creature, he promises to destroy it. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air and charges straight toward his target. The monster simply watches him while strange slime drips from its body. Suddenly, additional parts of the creature emerge from the muddy water. The giant beast reveals that two smaller offspring have joined the battle as well. The boy spins his spear and creates an electric barrier around himself. Determined to end the fight quickly, he gathers power and fires a massive energy beam directly at the monster. The attack strikes its face and causes significant damage. Believing he has won, he lands with a smug smile. However, as the dust settles, the monster appears unharmed and ready to continue fighting. The huge wound on its face rapidly regenerates. Witnessing this, the feline warrior is shocked and loses his confidence. The creature immediately swings a massive claw at him. Helpless, the boy falls to the ground and closes his eyes, expecting death. At the last second, the white-haired hero appears and blocks the attack with a technological shield. The boy is stunned that someone saved him so effortlessly. Jin moves past him and unleashes a powerful energy slash at the monster. Even after the attack lands, the giant creature remains standing. The hero raises his hand and activates another ability. A massive beam of light pierces through the monster's chest, causing severe damage. The boy watches in disbelief while the villagers cry out in shock from a distance. Jin orders everyone to get away immediately. The elderly villagers stand frozen, unable to comprehend the stranger's overwhelming strength. The old woman can only wonder what she has just witnessed. Suddenly, the monster raises its enormous arm and prepares a devastating strike. Without hesitation, Jin grabs the young warrior and retreats at incredible speed. The beast's attack crashes into the ground where they had been standing moments earlier. Jin lands safely and sets the boy down. Lying on the ground, the feline youth asks who this powerful stranger really is. Jin ignores the question and watches as the monster regenerates all of its injuries within seconds. He explains that special technology is required to stop the regeneration of these creatures. Looking at the boy, he realizes this technology is what people now call divine power. Jin compliments the boy's lightning attack, but explains that it failed because it did not penetrate deeply enough. Amazed, the boy asks if he is a god. The hero simply replies that he does not remember being one. Approaching him, Jin says he needs to tell him something important. Calmly, he reminds the boy that he claimed the monster was only the village's problem. The feline warrior becomes annoyed by his attitude. Facing the creature, Jin declares that the monster is now his problem. Without warning, the beast attacks with its massive tail. Jin effortlessly dodges and glides across the water. Remaining calm, he decides to immobilize the creature first. Creating a glowing shield, he blocks a tremendous impact with ease. The monstrous beast rises from the water, roaring furiously. Jin explains that these monsters were born from humanity's mistakes. As electricity gathers around his clenched fist, he reveals that he lived 100 million years ago and has carried the burden of humanity's failures ever since. Preparing his final attack, he declares that he is the only one capable of ending this threat. The feline boy asks if he can really win, and Jin confidently says yes. Images of the past flash through his mind: ancient knights fighting endless wars, modern soldiers destroying civilizations in tragic conflicts, and scientists conducting painful experiments in a desperate attempt to save humanity. All of those efforts ultimately led to his creation, the final human ever produced on Earth. Jin releases his full power and fires a colossal beam of light directly at the monster. The attack strikes head-on, freezing the beast in place before completely overwhelming it. A massive pillar of white energy erupts from his hand and engulfs the creature. The monster is instantly vaporized by the blast. Watching from afar, the villagers stare in complete disbelief. Hakama smiles with admiration as she witnesses the savior's incredible power. The beam is so powerful that it pierces the clouds and can be seen from space. When the light fades, only a glowing green puddle remains where the monster once stood. The feline warrior breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes the enormous gap between himself and Jin. Brushing brushing dust from his hands, the hero calmly states that he is the last one. He then places the boy on his shoulders and introduces himself as humanity's final scientific weapon. As peace returns to the sea, Jin quietly watches the horizon. Suddenly, a girl wearing glasses emerges from the bushes and announces that she came to investigate the intruders. Using a special lens, the girl is shocked by what she sees. Not even the captain of the knights could display such power. Witnessing it firsthand, the young spy feels her heart race with excitement and decides to return to the royal capital as quickly as possible. Later, deep within a dark forest, the hero activates a cube that projects a recorded message from his friend. The scientist's hologram smiles and says he always wanted to speak to someone after his death. He asks about the future and assumes nature has recovered by now. However, his tone quickly becomes serious. He warns that there is still a major problem. Even if the planet heals, the mutant monsters will not disappear on their own. Hearing this, the protagonist remains silent and listens carefully. The scientist explains that around 1,000 years after Jin entered his deep sleep, he noticed something unusual. To monitor the world's progress, he also placed himself in suspended animation. As the environment improved, the number of monsters gradually decreased. However, while studying global data, he discovered a new threat emerging. The hologram shows footage of a mysterious, purple-haired creature standing beside a fallen animal. Unlike the original monsters, this being appears far more intelligent and dangerous. The scientist explains that the beasts evolved alongside the recovering world. As a result, these new mutants became far greater threats than their predecessors. To give future life forms a chance to defend themselves, he distributed energy-based technology throughout the world. He also prepared a special gift for Jin. Confused, the warrior looks at a glowing cube in his hand. Opening it, he finds a syringe filled with bright green liquid. Without hesitation, he injects the substance into his arm. His body immediately begins glowing with energy, as he is the only person compatible with the technology. Watching energy flow through his body, Jin studies his hands. Suddenly, a brilliant technological blade forms in his palm. Realizing he can now create weapons through advanced technology, he immediately recognizes how useful the ability is. The hologram explains that similar upgrades were hidden in secret facilities across the world. They were scattered to prevent enemies from destroying everything at once. Another reason was to encourage Jin to travel and explore the new world. The scientist then talks about the future and the dangerous creatures that still exist. Despite these threats, he points out that the world has improved dramatically. He recalls how hopeless the old world once was. Now, people can run freely through forests without constant fear. Villages have been rebuilt, cities have returned, and peace has begun to flourish again. For the first time in ages, people can live, learn, and grow safely in their homes. The hologram smiles warmly and asks his friend to enjoy this new world. As the recording nears its end, the image begins to flicker. The scientist regrets that he will never witness the conclusion of the journey. His aged appearance reveals that he devoted his entire life to the project. Watching the final message, Jin becomes saddened by the fate of his longtime companion. With his last words, the scientist entrusts the future of the planet to him. Jin stores the cube away and accepts the responsibility. Soon afterward, the beast children come running toward him. Exhausted, they excitedly explain that everyone has been searching for him. Pulling on his arm, they insist that the celebration cannot begin without the savior. The warm reception surprises Jin. However, he suddenly notices something shining around the little girl's neck. Taking a closer look, he examines the small key-shaped pendant and asks where she got it. The girl explains that it is a treasure passed down through generations of her clan. According to her, the pendant was meant to summon the guardian god whenever great danger threatened the village. Smiling, Jin finally understands how he was awakened and decides to accompany his new friends. That night, the village celebrates its victory around a large bonfire. Villagers call their friends over, sharing drinks and enjoying the festivities. When Jin arrives, one villager asks whether he is truly the legendary guardian god. Another dismisses the idea, claiming the stranger belongs to an inferior race. The feline boy immediately becomes angry and confronts the group. With a swift kick, he knocks down one of the men who insulted the savior. He shouts that they fled during the battle and therefore never witnessed the warrior's incredible strength. The children now admire Jin deeply, unlike when they first met him. Soon, Hakama's father and the village elder approach the white-haired hero. The village leader thanks him on behalf of everyone for saving their lives. He explains that the village would have been destroyed without his intervention and wishes to repay the debt. Jin smiles calmly and tells them not to worry about rewards. However, since they insist, he requests information instead of material compensation. He wants to learn about the current state of the world. His request confuses the village leader, but the elder quickly offers advice. She suggests that he travel to the royal capital, where he can find the answer answers he seeks. The elder explains that the city is home to King Cormosia, the ruler of the entire kingdom. She also mentions that the villagers regularly travel there to sell their valuable silkworm fabrics. The journey ahead is long, but the elderly woman believes the protector will be fine despite any dangers. She asks him to take Hakama along as his guide, since the girl also needs to travel to the royal capital. Because she can use divine power, she must attend the academy there to develop her abilities. The next morning brings a beautiful day to the peaceful village. Opening the door, the protagonist smiles as he enjoys the fresh air of this new world. Looking across the landscape, he reflects that he never expected to witness such beauty. A trace of sadness crosses his face as he wishes his friend Kagura could have seen it too. Soon, the feline boy arrives, carrying fresh clothes, and once again calls him the guardian god. He quickly points out that the hero is not properly dressed and tells him to change. After preparing for the journey, Jin and Hakama set out for the royal capital. Before they leave, the village elder reminds Hakama to be a reliable guide. The feline boy complains because he wanted to join them, but his grandmother tells him to focus on his studies instead. Jin compliments the boy's performance during the previous battle. Embarrassed, the young warrior turns bright red and says he will wait for him in the capital. Filled with enthusiasm, he promises to study hard. Hakama's father then thanks Jin and asks him to protect his daughter during the dangerous journey. Before parting, he tells Hakama to take care of herself and stay healthy. After saying their goodbyes, the pair finally leaves the village. Hakama runs ahead excitedly, while Jin follows at a relaxed pace. They travel along a path beside a sparkling river surrounded by lush wilderness. By sunset, they stop to rest near a beautiful mountain waterfall. The girl points toward the horizon and proudly shows the scenery to her companion. Later that night, sitting beside a campfire, she mentions that they are still 4 days away from the capital. Jin thinks the distance sounds surprisingly short. Curious, Hakama asks why he wants to learn about the world and once again calls him the guardian god. With a faint smile, Jin replies that it is a secret. He remembers Kagura's warning that the corruptors would never completely disappear. The image of the strange mutant he recently encountered comes to mind, confirming that the creatures still exist in this era. However, he reasons that such monsters should only appear in heavily polluted regions. As he reflects on this, he senses something unsettling. Hakama notices his serious expression and asks if something is wrong. Jin apologizes and says he is simply thinking about an important problem. At least, he concludes, humanity is no longer completely controlled by those creatures. His first goal is to learn how people currently deal with the corruptors. He then asks Hakama to stop calling him a god and simply call him Jin. Suddenly, the sound of a galloping horse cuts through the quiet night. Both travelers become alert, and Hakama grows nervous as someone approaches. A blond man riding a horse soon appears and politely apologizes for disturbing their rest. The knight asks if he can speak with them for a moment. His shining armor and serious demeanor clearly indicate his high rank. Remaining calm, Jin asks who he is. The man introduces himself as Argus Walton, captain of the 7th Division of the Knights. Hearing that title, Jin wonders if these are the people he has been searching for. One of the captain's companions immediately becomes irritated by his casual attitude. She orders Jin to stand and show proper respect to her commander, criticizing his lack of manners. Before the situation escalates, Argus stops her and tells her to calm down. Offering a polite smile, the captain apologizes and invites Jin to talk. Standing up, Jin asks what the knight meant by her accusation. Argus then asks where they came from and where they are headed. Hakama answers that they departed from Kodama village and are traveling to the royal capital. The female knight smirks, convinced she has caught them in a lie. She dismounts her horse, draws her sword, and accuses them of fabricating their story. According to her, there are no official records of someone like Jin in the village. Jin is surprised to learn that the kingdom keeps such organized records. However, Argus disagrees with his subordinate and confirms that Hakama's story is believable. He points out that her clothing is made from a rare and valuable fabric produced in that region. His explanation leaves the female knight embarrassed. Even so, Argus suddenly becomes more serious and grips his sword tightly. Pointing the blade toward Jin, he says that the white-haired man is a different matter entirely. The captain explains that Jin's clothing is unusual and asks where it came from. He also reveals that bandits often use children to ambush travelers along that road. Because of that, he suspects the pair may be criminals pretending pretending to be harmless travelers. Hakama immediately denies the accusation, insisting that they are not bandits. Argus calmly replies that he will decide whether that is true. Angry and frightened, Hakama prepares to fight back against the armed group. Green electrical energy begins gathering around her hands. With a cold and calculating gaze, Argus carefully observes her power and warns her not to do anything reckless. The female knight is shocked by the girl's divine power and quickly realizes how much potential she possesses. Meanwhile, Jin remains completely calm while facing the holy knights. The captain raises a glowing crystal and acknowledges that both travelers are stronger than they appear. Finally, he points his sword at Jin and demands to know his true origin. The knight warns that if the stranger's answer is unsatisfactory, he will end him right there. Remaining completely calm, the protagonist stares at the sword pointed at his face. Without showing fear, he takes a deep breath and claims that he also came from Kodama village. The unexpected answer completely confuses the brown-haired knight. However, the captain quickly understands the situation and sheathes his sword, shocking his companion. Turning to the little girl, he asks if she is telling the truth. She confirms everything and asks whether Jin could really be the legendary guardian god of the village. The captain silently considers the possibility. When he asks if the matter is settled, Jin confirms it is. The knight then mounts his horse and apologizes for the misunderstanding, leaving his partner stunned. He explains that they are also traveling to the capital and says they will likely meet again. Offering future assistance as repayment for the inconvenience, he prepares to leave despite his companion's protests. As the group rides away, the white-haired hero watches them with a faint smile. Meanwhile, the brown-haired knight angrily demands to know why the captain backed down. She insists the stranger was suspicious and once again calls him an inferior race. The captain grows serious at those words. With a strange smile, he asks who the real inferior one is, leaving her confused. Another knight agrees with him, further shocking her. Calmly, the captain asks whether she truly failed to notice what happened. He explains that the power gap between them and that man is enormous. He then reveals that he attempted to attack Jin at least 3 times. A flashback shows him pointing his sword at the white-haired warrior. Every attempt to activate his special abilities was instantly suppressed. Jin's glowing hand effortlessly neutralized his power before it could even activate. The captain explains that he was completely overwhelmed without the stranger making a visible move. His companion asks whether he tried using divine power, and he confirms that he did. Shocked, she realizes that the captain's abilities never fully activated. He explains that the same thing happened to him as it did to the little girl. The spirits completely ignored his commands. The green-haired knight reveals that she experienced the same phenomenon. The captain concludes that the difference in divine power between them and that stranger is overwhelming. According to him, only the commander of the Holy Knights could possibly accomplish something similar. The brown-haired knight becomes even more irritated by the comparison and angrily admits she failed to notice any of it. The captain explains that Jin is an anomaly and that she missed it because she is still inexperienced. As they continue riding, he states that the stranger most likely defeated the monster that attacked the village. Although the knight insists Jin is dangerous, the captain decides to keep observing him. Soon, they remember they must return to the royal capital. Looking toward the distant castle, the captain reflects on the so-called guardian god and his extraordinary power. He wonders what it would be like to have such a man as an ally and concludes that his strength could greatly benefit the kingdom. The following day, Jin comments to Hakama that they met some interesting people the previous night. The girl asks whether all knights in the capital are that strong. She explains that the group they met belongs to the elite holy knights. According to her, the captain's spiritual magic is on an entirely different level. She further explains that divine power comes from spirits, while the techniques themselves are considered magic. Hearing this, Jin realizes that the so-called spirits are actually nanomachines. In this era, advanced science has essentially become fantasy. Remembering how he was called an inferior race, Jin becomes thoughtful and repeats the phrase aloud. Confused, the girl asks what he means. Jin comments that there seem to be many different species in the world. She agrees and explains that some races resemble fish, while others look more like insects. According to her grandmother, suitable places to live were once limited. Over time, people altered their bodies to adapt to different environments. Jin is surprised and immediately connects it to evolution and survival. He concludes that some humans must have survived and gradually evolved over millions of years. When he asks if those who never changed are considered inferior races, the girl confirms it. She explains that people who failed to adapt are viewed as weak and often face discrimination. Some are even sold into slavery. Jin is shocked by the revelation. The girl admits she finds it strange to mistreat someone simply because they are different. Hearing that, Jin smiles and tells her she is a good person. She seems slightly confused by the compliment. Suddenly, the sound of massive footsteps interrupts their conversation. A blue-haired girl appears out of nowhere and desperately begs for help. While running toward them, she stumbles and collapses onto the dirt road. Hakama immediately rushes over and asks if she is okay. Jin watches closely as the girl lies unconscious on the ground. She is breathing heavily and appears seriously injured. Her pointed ears resemble those of an elf, and her body is covered in dirt and scratches. After examining her condition, Jin realizes her injuries are severe. The little girl gently places the stranger's head on her lap and tries to wake her up. Jin announces that he will heal her and creates a bright blue light in his hand. Suddenly, the injured girl opens her eyes. In one swift motion, she grabs Hakama and presses a knife against her neck. Caught completely off guard, the little girl freezes. The blue-haired woman warns Jin not to move and threatens to kill her hostage if he makes any suspicious moves. Jin remains silent, carefully analyzing the situation. The wind begins to blow through the trees, making the atmosphere even more tense. After a brief pause, the protagonist takes a deep breath and warns her that she is making a serious mistake. An invisible man appears and places a large sword against the hero's neck. The bandit warns him not to move if he values his life. The man compliments the blue-haired woman's performance and reveals the rest of the gang. One of the bandits asks where the stranger comes from, pointing out his unusual clothing. Another becomes excited after learning that he may possess divine power. When asked whether he can actually use it, Jin simply smiles. Without warning, one of the thugs drives a powerful kick into his stomach. The large bandit tells him not to get arrogant and insults him as an inferior race. Their leader quickly warns the others not to damage the merchandise, claiming the boy is not worth much anyway. Some of the criminals debate whether Jin truly possesses divine power, while others doubt it entirely. At that moment, the little girl realizes they are the infamous slave traders operating in the region. The leader activates his electric ability and orders the pair to go to sleep. Terrified, the girl fears she is about to be sold into slavery. Later, in a dark underground location, Jin gently tries to wake his companion. Startled, she opens her eyes and realizes they are trapped inside a cage. Finding the hero beside her, she asks if he is all right. Jin calmly confirms that he is. Looking around, he studies their surroundings and concludes that they have been taken to the bandits' hideout. He soon notices that many other prisoners have been captured as well. Nearby, two wounded captives sit hopelessly inside another cell. Elsewhere, a young elf girl stares at the ground in despair. Jin and his companion silently observe the miserable scene. The girl then notices that he is barely wearing anything and asks what happened to his clothes. Jin explains that the bandits took them because they considered them valuable. Surprised by his calm attitude, she comments on it, but he casually replies that he spent much of his life with very little clothing anyway. However, she cannot understand why someone as powerful as him did not fight back during the ambush. According to her, he could have defeated everyone there without difficulty. Jin simply stares ahead without answering. Soon, one of the bandits orders the blue-haired woman to deliver food to the prisoners. Meanwhile, Jin quietly meditates inside the cell while his companion watches. The young woman enters carrying a tray and is surprised to find them awake. Filled with anger, the little girl immediately begins yelling at her for betraying them. The blue-haired woman sadly accepts the hatred, admitting that she never expected forgiveness. Gripping the bars tightly, the little girl glares at her with pure fury. Before the argument can continue, Jin interrupts and calmly says that the woman is actually a kind person. Both girls are completely confused by the statement. The blue-haired woman insists that a true criminal would never deserve such praise. Jin explains that real villains do not care about being hated or forgiven. Then he stands up. The two girls watch in shock as he casually grabs the thick metal bars of the cell and bends them apart with his bare hands. The blue-haired woman's jaw drops at the unbelievable display of strength. Jin calmly steps out of the cage as if it were nothing. Still stunned, the woman watches as he explains that he intentionally waited for her so they could speak privately. He asks where the person important to her is being held. The woman immediately asks how he knew someone was being used against her. Jin admits it was only a guess. At first, he believed her injuries were genuine evidence of betrayal. However, he later realized that even bandits would not treat one of their own so brutally. That led him to conclude that she was cooperating because someone precious to her was being threatened. Hearing this, the young woman doubles over in pain. Jin asks if the hostage is her younger brother. With tears forming in her eyes, she confirms it. She remembers the day the criminals kidnapped him and threatened to sell him away. Crying openly, she says they would be separated forever. She reveals that she has has already lost her parents and cannot bear to lose her little brother as well. Jin's companion watches silently, unsure of what to say. A look of fury appears on Jin's face as he declares those bandits to be the lowest of the low. The little girl then realizes why he allowed himself to be captured and asks if it was to save the woman. Jin confirms it. He explains that criminals are like stubborn oil stains. If even one escapes, the problem simply spreads somewhere else. For that reason, if you're going to eliminate them, you have to finish the job completely. Without hesitation, he punches the cell door free and hurls it across the room. The metal door slams directly into a guard's head. As Jin walks out of the prison, surrounded by a dark and intimidating aura, he declares that he will wipe out every bandit in the hideout. At that moment, a memory from 100 million years ago surfaces. The scene shifts to a futuristic city filled with neon lights and flying vehicles. A black-haired, blue-eyed boy appears, his face covered in bruises. Back then, he used to watch television reports about heroes fighting for justice. Inspired by them, he dreamed of becoming the same kind of person and often wandered the city alone. However, reality eventually shattered that dream. He learned that a world constantly in need of justice is a world where something is fundamentally wrong. Everywhere he looked, he saw people causing harm and suffering. All he wanted was a normal life, but fate refused to allow it. The environment he grew up in never gave him a moment of peace. Eventually, he decided to fight back. His only choice was to defeat every criminal who stood in his way. As the years passed, his life became an endless cycle of battles. He continued taking down criminals, one after another, without ever stopping. Then, one day, a mysterious researcher approached him and spoke about his future. The young fighter listened carefully as the scientist explained that he had been born in the wrong era. Finally, the researcher extended his hand toward the boy. Back in the present, the hero drags one of the bandits across the floor with ease. The remaining guards panic and order him to stop, but within seconds, they are all defeated. One of them asks what his true objective is, while another, slumped against a wall, wonders where such a powerful man came from. Jin simply responds with a sinister smile. Without hesitation, he throws one criminal into another. The guard manages to catch his companion, but is stunned by the force behind the throw. Moving with incredible speed, Jin attacks the next target before he can react. Frozen with fear, the bandit can only stare while holding his unconscious ally. The last thug standing demands to know who he is. Jin remains silent. Frustrated, the man attempts to fight back but is effortlessly overwhelmed. Suddenly, a scream echoes through the hideout, alarming the prisoners. The blue-haired girl recognizes the voice and turns immediately. Nervously, she asks who Jin's companion is. The little girl confidently replies that he is the guardian god. Trusting him completely, she tells everyone to leave the battle to Jin and begins leading the prisoners out of their cells. One girl asks if they are truly safe now. The blue-haired woman remains worried, knowing how powerful the bandit leader is. Meanwhile, the boss falls to his knees and begs Jin to spare him. As Jin approaches, the criminal asks if he wants money. With a nervous grin, he offers the slaves as a peace offering, claiming the hero can take whichever one he wants. Jin stares at him in disgust. Then he calmly asks if the man has finished talking. The bandit is confused, but suddenly realizes something terrifying. His spiritual magic has completely stopped working. Panicking, he wonders what kind of power can nullify his abilities. Jin explains that he is a mediocre villain and easy to deal with. According to him, a truly dangerous criminal would have fled the moment he witnessed such overwhelming power. Instead, fools always underestimate their opponents, believe they can still win, and beg for mercy only when defeat is inevitable. Terrified, the bandit decides to escape. Rushing toward a lever, he yells that the battle is not over and activates a hidden mechanism. A secret door opens, revealing a gigantic purple monster inside a dark chamber. The criminal proudly introduces it as a special invader. With a powerful kick, the creature smashes through its cage and emerges in a rage. The boss declares that if negotiation failed, the monster will kill the warrior instead. Confidently, he claims the battle will be over in seconds. The beast immediately launches a massive punch at Jin. Expecting victory, the bandit smiles. However, Jin catches the monster's fist with one hand and stops the attack effortlessly. The criminal leader can only stare in disbelief. Jin explains that he was born with a superhuman body and possesses far more muscle fibers than an ordinary person. Then he delivers a precise punch that sends the monster flying. A blue aura erupts around him as he warns that he will no longer hold back. Using his power, he fires a gigantic beam of light directly at the creature. The bandit watches in horror as the monster is completely vaporized. Unable to comprehend what happened, he asks how Jin achieved achieved such power without using divine power. Jin remains calm while listening to his desperate questions. Soon, the criminal realizes there is no chance of survival. Sweating heavily, he begs for mercy. Then he forces a nervous smile and concludes that the warrior never intended to let him leave alive. Before he can continue speaking, Jin delivers a powerful kick straight to his face, knocking him unconscious. With the battle over, the protagonist finally recovers his long coat and puts it back on. Adjusting the collar, he is satisfied to have retrieved his stolen belongings. Turning to the imprisoned children, he asks them to wait a little longer. He promises to free everyone after taking care of a few final matters. Walking to a nearby desk, he explains that he needs evidence of the gang's crimes. Opening a drawer, he discovers a strange document. The paper immediately catches his attention because it seems connected to something much larger. Unfortunately, the language is completely unfamiliar and written with bizarre symbols. Unable to understand a single word, Jin stares at the document in confusion. Still pretending to know what he is doing, he smirks confidently and decides to ask his young companion to teach him how to read later. His attention then shifts to the dark stones scattered across the floor. Curious about why the bandits captured the monster, he approaches the remains of the creature. Using his technology, he accesses the nanomachines spread throughout the area and reviews footage from the past week. The floating screens reveal a shocking truth. The monster was deliberately brought there. In the recordings, one bandit argues that capturing such a dangerous creature is pointless. However, a mysterious man insists that something important will soon happen in that country. Analyzing the footage, Jin realizes the entire incident was planned. The attack on the village was not a random event. Someone intentionally captured and released the monster as part of a much darker scheme. Outside the hideout, the rescued prisoners gather and wonder if they are finally safe. The blue-haired woman hears approaching footsteps and notices everyone's nervous expressions. Moments later, a small blue-haired boy runs toward her at full speed. Calling out to his sister, he throws himself into her arms. The siblings embrace tightly. Overwhelmed with relief, tears fill the girl's eyes as she realizes she has finally protected her little brother. She thanks Jin repeatedly and calls him her savior. Smiling, he reminds her that he is not a god and tells her not to worry anymore. Suddenly, he points towards several men restraining the defeated bandits. The short-haired girl explains that they are not locals, but members of the guild. Proudly, she reveals that she contacted them herself. Jin is impressed by her quick thinking. She also points out a large man nearby and explains that he is the guild's leader. Soon, an elderly man with large horns approaches. Looking at the destruction around him, he asks whether the warrior is responsible for all of it. Then he politely bows, thanks Jin for his cooperation, and introduces himself as Padrak. Impressed by the young warrior, Padrak concludes that he is far from an ordinary person. The guild leader explains that his organization received numerous requests to eliminate the bandit group. Jin is surprised to learn that the local king never dealt with the problem himself. Laughing at his confusion, Padrak explains that the territorial ruler has little authority in such matters. According to him, criminal investigations and law enforcement are handled by the guild, which swore eternal loyalty directly to the king who governs the entire nation. He even reveals that if a local king broke the law, the guild would arrest him themselves. In practice, the guild functions as the country's police force. Hearing this, Jin recalls the suspicious conversations involving the captured monster and the king. He quietly concludes that the ruler cannot be trusted. Choosing to keep his discovery secret, he apologizes and tells Padrak to forget what he said earlier. Looking at the freed captives gathered outside, Jin asks what will happen to them now. Padrak explains that anyone with identifiable relatives or homes will be sent back. However, those with nowhere to return to will receive no further assistance. The blue-haired girl lowers her head sadly, knowing her brother has no home left. Jin disagrees with this system and asks whether there are any shelters. Padrak shakes his head and says no such facilities exist anywhere in the kingdom. Seeing the siblings' situation, Jin genuinely wants to help them. Suddenly, an idea comes to mind. He asks the brother and sister whether they would be willing to work somewhere peaceful. With a confident smile, he says he already knows the perfect place. At that moment, he remembers the invitation previously offered by the captain of the Holy Knights. Giving a mysterious smile, Jin hints that the workplace he has in mind is quite special. Far away, the magnificent royal capital rises on the horizon, home to the enormous estate of the Knight Captain's family. The captain returns from patrol with his soldiers. Suddenly, he feels a strange chill. His green-haired companion companion notices and asks whether something is wrong. The captain dismisses it as nothing more than a passing feeling. Soon, he enters his massive mansion, where a group of maids with animal ears greet him respectfully. Walking through the luxurious halls, he asks the head butler if there is any important news. The butler immediately begins sweating nervously. Sensing the unusual tension, the captain stops and asks what happened while he was away. The butler apologizes for disturbing him after such a tiring mission, but the captain reassures him. Leaning closer, the butler quietly whispers the important information into his ear. Meanwhile, a beautiful blonde woman watches the exchange from the staircase above. With crossed arms and a serious expression, she silently observes everything from a distance. After hearing the report, the captain thanks the butler. The information leaves him deeply concerned. He learns that monsters have appeared inside the capital itself. Immediately, he wonders how they entered the city. With a grim expression, he concludes that someone must have deliberately allowed them inside. His primary suspect becomes Harness Academy, since access to the institution is heavily restricted. Realizing he may need powerful allies, he begins considering his options. Meanwhile, 3 days after defeating the bandits, Jin's group finally approaches the capital. The blue-haired girl nervously asks whether she will really be able to find work. Jin reassures her with a smile. Since she can read, write, and handle mathematics, he is confident she will have no trouble finding employment. Encouraged by his words, she thanks him sincerely. Suddenly, Jin's young companion points toward the horizon and announces that they have arrived. Looking up, Jin is stunned by the sight before him. The group stands before an enormous, walled city. Inside, the capital is crowded and vibrant, filled with medieval-style buildings and bustling streets. Jin immediately notices how alive the city feels. The girl explains that the capital thrives through trade and imports, which is why products from every region eventually arrive there. She also mentions that villagers from her hometown regularly sell goods in the city. Jin finds everything fascinating, especially the sight of people with insect-like wings moving through the crowds. The city has become a true mixture of races and cultures. Shops display products from countless regions, while the streets remain remarkably clean and organized. Children play freely, and the laws appear to be enforced effectively. However, Jin's expression gradually becomes more serious. Behind the city's peaceful appearance, he remembers that slavery and forced servitude still exist. Staring into the distance, he reflects that every era carries its own problems. Changing the subject, he asks when the academy entrance exam will take place. The girl replies that it is scheduled for next week. Relieved, Jin nods. Nearby, a blonde noblewoman overhears the conversation and realizes they intend to enroll in Harness Academy. Looking at them with contempt, she silently wonders why a group of mixed-blood commoners would even attempt such a thing. Later, the group finally finds a comfortable inn where they can rest after their journey. Inside the room, the children excitedly jump onto the beds and celebrate. Sitting down, Jin happily remarks that he will finally get to sleep in a real bed again. The girl quickly agrees. Although grateful they arrived safely, Jin knows there are still many problems to solve. Holding a pouch of coins, he points out that surviving in this era requires money. The reward they earned will not last forever. In addition, he still needs to secure jobs for the 2 siblings he rescued. Jin believes the easiest solution would be contacting the blonde knight captain. Unfortunately, he has no way to reach him. Resting his hand on his chin, the protagonist begins searching for a plan that can solve all of these issues at once. Jin wonders whether he should begin investigating the corruptors of this new era. Remembering the people who were already using the monsters for their own schemes, he realizes the threat cannot be ignored. Looking out the window, he decides he must act before history repeats itself. When he asks how to conduct research, the girl explains that people learn through teachers or books. She mentions that books are expensive. In her village, families would pool their money together just to buy a few. However, the capital has a library where people can research almost anything. The idea immediately catches Jin's attention. Smiling, he thinks the library may contain clues leading to his friend's laboratory. However, a pink-haired librarian politely informs them that their request cannot be granted. The books are considered national treasures, and access is restricted to students, teachers, and nobles of the capital. His young companion points out that Jin cannot even read yet. He admits that he is still illiterate. Although he has started learning the alphabet, reading an entire page is still far beyond his current ability. As he wonders what to do next, 2 hooded figures suddenly appear nearby. The pair quietly observes the group, and one confirms that they have found their target. Sensing their presence, Jin turns around and asks what they want. Without warning, a wolf-eared young man throws a punch directly at him. Jin catches the attack effortlessly with one hand. With a calm expression, he comments on the capital's unusual way of welcoming welcoming visitors. The attacker smirks and says Jin clearly has the wrong impression of the city. A powerful yellow aura begins glowing around the young man's hand. The two briefly test their strength, causing a burst of energy that creates a small explosion in the middle of the street. Nearby residents are startled by the sudden clash. The wolf-eared fighter jumps back and Jin compliments his quick reflexes. The blue-haired girl is shocked to see divine power being used openly in public. Jin asks what they want. The attacker replies that someone dislikes him. Immediately, Jin understands that the assault was arranged by a third party. Rather than being concerned, he sees it as the perfect opportunity to advance his plans. The thug orders him to leave the city. Jin calmly replies that he only concerns himself with real threats. Irritated by the answer, the wolf-eared fighter attacks again with everything he has. Jin easily catches his fist, twists his arm, and slams him into the ground. The attack enrages the man's red-haired partner, who forms a fireball and launches it directly at the outsider. Jin simply raises a hand and disperses the flames as if they never existed. A moment later, he appears directly in front of the attacker. The young man is stunned by the speed. Without giving him time to react, Jin grabs him by the collar. He tells him to come back when he is strong enough to be a genuine threat. Then he asks whether he will have the courage to try again. Terrified, the attacker realizes Jin is nothing like the weak, inferior race he assumed him to be. His companion suddenly shouts for everyone to stop. At that moment, a female holy knight arrives and orders everyone to remain where they are. Annoyed, she complains that people are causing trouble in the middle of the street on her day off. She announces that everyone involved will be taken into custody. Hearing this, Jin quietly smiles. His plan to attract attention through the fight has worked perfectly. Suddenly, the knight recognizes him and exclaims that he is the same inferior from the forest. The two defeated attackers remain on the ground while she approaches with an irritated expression. Pointing her weapon at Jin, she accuses him of causing problems. Immediately after arriving in the capital, with a mocking smile, she comments that inferior races never know their place. Before the situation escalates, a rabbit-eared woman steps forward and explains that she witnessed everything. According to her, Jin's group was attacked first and only acted in self-defense. The knight is surprised by the testimony and glances at the unconscious attackers. Recognizing them, she asks whether they are students from Harness Academy. Massaging her forehead, she sighs and hopes a certain young lady is not involved. Curious, Jin asks who she means. The knight dismisses the question and tells him not to worry about it. Instead, he comments that holy knights apparently perform patrol duties as well. She explains that the capital is enormous, so the order helps maintain public safety. While speaking, she carefully studies the white-haired warrior. The academy students were not weak, yet Jin handled them effortlessly. Realizing how strong he must be, she becomes thoughtful. After warning him not to cause any more trouble, she prepares to leave. However, Jin stops her and says there is somewhere he would like to show her. Confused by the request, she asks what he means. A short time later, the group arrives at the luxurious estate belonging to the captain's family. Seated across from the captain, Jin immediately makes his proposal. He asks him to hire the siblings. The blonde knight is caught completely off guard. Remembering the promise he made in the forest, he asks why Jin's group has grown so much since then. Jin explains that he defeated a group of bandits and rescued 2 imprisoned siblings. The captain asks what happened to the criminals. Jin replies that he handed them over to the guild. Resting his hand on his chin, the captain asks whether he defeated the entire gang by himself. He then wonders why Jin became involved in the first place. Jin explains that the siblings have no family and belong to a race that society looks down upon. Because of that, he wanted to help them find a place where they could work and live safely. The captain cannot understand why Jin feels responsible for them. Jin simply replies that this is how he chooses to live. Since he saved them, he intends to take responsibility for them until the very end. His determination impresses both the captain and the female knight. Hearing those words, the brother and sister smile with genuine hope for the first time. After a moment of thought, the captain agrees. He offers both siblings jobs as servants within the estate, leaving the young woman overjoyed. However, the captain of the knights set one condition before accepting the deal. He wanted the outsider to become an instructor, leaving the young man confused. Once everything was settled, the siblings received new servant uniforms and looked much more presentable. The white-haired warrior smiled and commented that the clothes suited them well. The young woman bowed and sincerely thanked the captain for the opportunity, but he told her there was no need. He entrusted their education to the butler and instructed him not to discriminate against them because of their race. The siblings waved goodbye to their savior as he prepared for his next task. Curious, the protagonist asked why he had been invited to become an instructor. The captain praised his perception and explained that he trusted him despite knowing nothing about his origins. He then revealed the real reason he wanted the hero to infiltrate the famous Harness Academy. Confused, the warrior listened as the knight explained the kingdom's situation. The nation had become a target for several factions, and when the protagonist asked about the king, the captain explained that the ruler was gravely ill. A secret struggle for the throne had already begun. According to him, individuals with no legitimate claim to the crown were trying to seize control of the kingdom. To achieve their goals, they used invaders and dragged innocent people into the conflict. Hearing this, the hero realized that the local lord was far from being the only threat. The group agreed that these conspirators needed to be identified as soon as possible. The white-haired man then asked if the academy was the most suspicious location. At that moment, the captain knocked on a door and announced he was bringing someone in. He introduced a young woman who would serve as the hero's guide inside the academy. The blonde girl was his younger sister and a student there. She greeted the group with a serious expression while everyone observed silently. The noblewoman immediately questioned whether such an important mission should really be entrusted to a mixed blood. Annoyed, the captain ordered her to show respect, but she continued insulting the protagonist. She openly stated that she refused to accept someone she considered inferior handling such a critical task. The captain apologized for her immature behavior, but the little girl accompanying the hero pointed out that he also showed prejudice at times. Opening her fan, the student asked whether the protagonist understood his responsibilities. Besides infiltrating the academy, he would also need to serve as an instructor. She doubted that someone from his race possessed the knowledge required to teach. Suddenly, the little girl blurted out that the hero could not even read, leaving everyone stunned. The blonde noblewoman closed her eyes and declared the entire plan impossible. His companion quickly defended him, insisting that he was amazing and that anyone could learn from him. The noblewoman remained silent for a moment before admitting that he certainly had the strength to discipline the academy's students. Even so, she warned that being an instructor required far more than physical power. Embarrassed by his sister's attitude, the captain rubbed his forehead. Meanwhile, the dog-eared warrior realized that the academy students who attacked him earlier had likely been sent by the noblewoman. The captain apologized again, but the protagonist told him not to worry about it. He then asked what subject he was expected to teach. The captain answered that it would be spirit magic, explaining that the hero appeared exceptionally skilled in its use. The white-haired warrior asked which area he should teach. The knight replied that basic elemental magic would be enough, listing fire, lightning, ice, and healing. According to him, mastering even one of those fields was considered impressive. The hero questioned whether that was all, confusing the captain. Curious, the knight asked if he used a special form of magic. The protagonist didn't fully understand the question, but he recalled the bandit he had fought earlier and wondered whether that man was considered powerful by modern standards. Amused, he found the situation increasingly interesting. Deciding to challenge the world's common understanding of magic, he raised his hand and prepared a demonstration. Outside, he released a burst of energy that blasted a crater into the academy courtyard. A spectral figure appeared, startling a long-nosed observer watching from afar. With nothing more than a snap of his fingers, the warrior displayed complete mastery over the power. Suddenly, a wolf-eared man dropped to his knees under the overwhelming pressure of the spell. Panicked, he demanded to know what kind of magic the outsider had used. Desperate, he accused the hero of cheating and insisted he had never seen anything like it before. Meanwhile, the instructors calmly observed the chaos from a distance. Smiling, the captain declared that the demonstration settled the matter, and the academy headmaster agreed. The students watched the white-haired warrior with a mixture of fear and amazement. The blonde noblewoman was stunned by the display, while her companion confirmed it was an unusual form of magic. Unable to understand how someone she considered inferior could possess such power, she stared at the protagonist with growing suspicion. Quietly, she wondered who he truly was. 1 week later, classes began at the academy, an institution dedicated to teaching many subjects, but primarily focused on training warriors to fight invaders. Students unable to keep up with the demanding curriculum would be expelled without hesitation. The headmistress explained that successful graduates could even become holy knights. During her speech, she emphasized that achievement depended entirely on individual talent and effort. In one of the private viewing areas, a young noble commented on the incoming students, noting that many of them were commoners. Soon after, a red-haired young man approached the blonde noblewoman and greeted her. His name was Rias, and he was surprised to see her attending the ceremony since she rarely showed interest in other people. Smiling, she replied that he was there for the same reason mission, she was to observe the new nobles. The lion-eared young man suddenly noticed something unusual among the instructors. Pointing toward the protagonist, he asked why a mixed blood was standing with the faculty. The noblewoman calmly replied that he was one of the instructors. Shocked, Ryas was left speechless. She then asked what he thought of the newcomer. Unable to answer, the young man remained silent. The noblewoman admitted that she had originally dismissed him as just another insignificant mixed blood. Below, the protagonist observed the ceremony while the nobles watched him from afar. Looking around, he realized just how enormous the academy was and concluded that investigating everything there would take quite some time. However, the hero could feel the students' disdainful stares and realized he needed to improve his reputation. To avoid drawing suspicion, he understood that earning their respect was essential. The scene shifts to the imposing castle that serves as Harness Academy's headquarters. Inside a classroom, a teacher announces the return of spirit magic lessons. He tells the elite class not to lower their guard around the new instructor, clearly harboring some ill intention. Looking around the nearly empty room, the professor complains that no one seems interested. With her arms crossed, the blonde noble admits that motivation is low. The large-nosed teacher smirks and reveals that he spread rumors that the class would be taught by a mixed blood. Soon, the wolf-eared instructor introduces the newcomer. Smiling calmly, the protagonist introduces himself as Shido Jin and explains that he will be teaching spirit magic for a while. He hopes they can get along. The lion-eared student immediately questions whether he is qualified to teach. Jin calmly replies that the students can decide for themselves. If they find the lessons useless, they are free not to attend. The red-haired student smirks, but Jin adds one condition everyone must follow. Displaying his power, he tells them never to use spirit magic against other people. He explains that the ability was created to counter the regeneration of invaders. Against humans, however, it only causes ordinary injuries. With a serious expression, he emphasizes that spirit magic was designed to defeat enemies, not harm innocent people. The noble student becomes thoughtful, but another student mocks him, claiming that power is simply power. A cat-eared student laughs, saying he only came to see what a mixed blood instructor could teach. Another calls him weak and says he refuses to be compared to someone like him. Soon, the entire classroom is laughing at the new professor. Jin remains completely calm. Then he challenges them, telling anyone who doubts his strength to test him. Confused, the cat-eared student asks what he means. Jin tells him to use his strongest attack. Smiling, he promises that if he gets injured, he will stop teaching immediately. The gray-haired student confidently accepts. Gathering energy, he warns Jin not to regret his decision because it is already too late. The large-nosed professor panics and tells him to stop, but the student ignores him. A massive beam of yellow energy shoots directly at Jin. The attack explodes on impact, filling the room with dust and smoke. Proud of himself, the student boasts about his power. Suddenly, a sharp shard of ice flies past his head at incredible speed. The attack barely misses him, leaving him frozen in shock. Looking at the wall behind him, he realizes how close he came to being killed. Wrapped in a blue aura, Jin coldly explains that if he had intended to attack, the student would already be dead. He warns them that judging people by appearance can be fatal. The classroom falls silent. The red-haired student stares in disbelief, wondering if that was really spirit magic. Remembering all the times he was called inferior, Jin asks what they should call someone vastly stronger than them. Smiling confidently, he answers his own question. Professor, he then asks the student how spirit magic is activated. Pointing directly at him, he demands an answer. The cat-eared student nervously explains that it requires visualization. According to him, one projects power into the spirits to manifest magic. Jin agrees that visualization is important, but explains that it is not the true activation condition. He reveals that spirits are actually nanomachines that respond to specific wavelengths. The students are confused. Jin continues by explaining that there are 8 fundamental wavelengths. To demonstrate, he displays fire magic. Then he shows lightning, followed by wind and ice. The students recognize those elements immediately. However, Jin reveals that there are 4 additional categories they have never learned about. First, he demonstrates gravity manipulation using a sphere of purple energy. Next comes light manipulation, represented by a brilliant white glow. Then he shows atmospheric pressure control. Finally, he demonstrates spatial protection, the same ability he used to block attacks earlier. The large-nosed professor is stunned and asks whether Jin can really use all 8 forms of spirit magic. Jin calmly explains that visualization is simply a tool for applying those concepts. With a small smile, he returns to the lectern and asks if they are finally ready to begin the real lesson. Later, while carrying out his mission, the protagonist walks through the academy's long corridors. He knows he must investigate the school, but the constant presence of students everywhere makes it difficult. Eventually, he decides to search for restricted areas instead. At that moment, he locks eyes with the blonde noble from across the hallway. She approaches him and immediately asks who he really is. Jin admits that he is not normal. The girl agrees, stating that he is clearly no ordinary mixed blood. She argues that someone from an inferior race should not be capable of using every type of magic. Jin reminds her that he already explained the method and insists anyone could do the same by altering the wavelength of their power. The noblewoman disagrees. If it were truly that simple, she argues, the students would not be so fascinated by him. Jin suggests they continue the conversation somewhere private. The two move to a quiet courtyard away from the crowds. There, the blonde student asks him to finally answer her questions. Without hesitation, Jin reveals that he is an ancient human who slept for 100 million years beneath Kodama village. Naturally, she doesn't believe him. She asks what he was doing so long ago in the distant past. Resting his hand on his chin, he replies that he did many things, including working as a special agent. The term means nothing to her, so he explains that it referred to someone who fought for their country. Smiling faintly, he recalls battling countless villains during his previous life. A flashback appears. He remembers relaxing with his teammates while listening to a mission briefing in a war room. He recalls combat operations and dangerous assignments as vividly as if they happened yesterday. The memories continue, showing the white-haired warrior running through explosions across a battlefield. Back in the present, Jin smiles nostalgically at those distant memories. The noblewoman then asks how he managed to sleep for 100 million years. After a brief pause, he simply replies that he failed. At that moment, he admits he had been arrogant, believing he could solve everything on his own. Because of that, he lost everything and was powerless to stop the monsters. He explains that he became an instructor because he wants allies he can rely on in the future. The young woman asks where they are heading, and he replies that she is simply carrying out her duty as his guide. Soon, the pair arrives at an old, dusty storage room inside the academy. She explains that the room is used to store teaching materials. Looking around, the protagonist realizes it is essentially a storeroom filled with books and old objects, including a small statue on one of the shelves. The noble then reveals that she has been conducting her own investigation. Showing him a map, she points to a suspicious empty space beside the room. Understanding her idea, the young man approaches the statue and activates a hidden mechanism. The bookshelf slides aside, revealing a secret staircase. Impressed, he praises her deduction. The girl asks how he found the entrance despite all the dust. He points out that one specific area was unusually clean and says he followed his intuition. He warns her that he plans to go down alone, but she insists on joining the investigation. Although he warns her about the danger, she confidently claims that her abilities are comparable to her brother's. Amused, he agrees and decides to trust her. Together, they descend the stairs while he creates a sphere of light to illuminate the darkness. Watching the spell, the noble comments on how useful light manipulation is. The young man jokes that the place feels like a fantasy game, a term she does not understand. She then asks about his earlier comment regarding villains and whether he has any suspects. Smiling, he reveals that he believes Professor Rodman may be involved. The girl asks why, and he explains that although Rodman appears calm, his attention always seems elsewhere. According to him, that is often the behavior of someone being forced to do something against their will. The noble admits that she suspected Professor Gilda instead, but he dismisses the idea. He says her emotions are easy to read and believes she is genuinely a good person. Continuing down the staircase, the pair eventually reaches a massive underground chamber. The noble is stunned by its size and cannot believe such a place exists beneath the academy. Suddenly, the hero stops. When she asks what he found, he says he never expected to see something like this there. Ahead of them stands a gigantic metal door, resembling the entrance to a laboratory. The white-haired young man immediately recognizes it as one of Kagura's abandoned laboratories. He explains that the door is protected by nanomachines. Leaving no doubt in his mind, the noble is amazed by the enormous hidden structure and asks whether it can be opened. He explains that they would need an access key, comparing it to an ordinary key used to unlock a door. As he thinks about a solution, he remembers that the village girl possessed a key and concludes that someone within the academy must have one as well. Determined, he channels magic into his hand and places it against the door. A blue light appears, verifying his access level. Moments later, the massive door begins to open with a loud rumble. The hero concludes that whoever is responsible for the recent chaos must possess a key to this facility. Inside, they discover dozens of cages box containing monsters, along with a gigantic specimen imprisoned in the center. The blonde noble is left speechless by the sight. She asks how he managed to open the door, and he casually replies that he has his own advantages. Staring at him, she repeats the words ancient human, still trying to process everything. She wonders whether he truly came from 100 million years in the past. Meanwhile, the protagonist examines one of the cages, staring closely at a green monster. As he walks through the facility, he finds the situation increasingly strange. None of the creatures attempt to escape despite being imprisoned. He remembers that the monsters captured by the bandits behaved the same way. More importantly, he questions how anyone managed to transport so many creatures beneath the academy. The noble admits that her brother was right to suspect the academy. She suggests setting a trap for the culprit, but the hero disagrees. He insists that securing the facility and dealing with the monsters must come first. The young woman worries that the criminal could escape, but he reminds her that if the creatures break free, the academy students will be the ones who suffer. Remembering that her brother always prioritizes people's safety, she eventually agrees. The hero then admits he has a bad feeling about the place. Trusting his instincts, he decides to investigate the laboratory more thoroughly. He asks her to contact her brother and have the academy sealed off immediately to prevent further trouble. The noble accepts the task and rushes off to find reinforcements. Left alone, the protagonist studies a large blue clock mounted on the wall. It appears to be an important clue. As he searches the laboratory for answers, the story shifts back to the academy. Several teachers are chatting in the hallways. Two instructors mock the large-nosed professor, leaving him furious. He complains that the new instructor has ruined his reputation and insists it is impossible for someone to wield 8 different types of magic. Filled with resentment, he vows to expose the outsider. Suddenly, the headmistress calls out to him and orders him to stop causing a scene. Startled, he argues that his behavior is not some hobby. The headmistress then asks whether he has seen Professor Rudman. After a moment, he admits he has not seen him since the academy's entrance ceremony. Disappointed, the headmistress explains that she wanted to discuss the curriculum with him. Suddenly, she senses something unusual. Looking out the window, she sees a dark purple energy spreading across the sky above the academy. At the same time, the young noble races up the stairs from the secret passage. Reaching the surface, she struggles to catch her breath and says she must warn her brother immediately. Before she can leave, a voice interrupts her and asks what she intends to tell him. Alarmed, she turns around and finds Professor Rudman standing directly in her path. With a sinister smile, the professor reveals his true nature, and in that instant, the girl finally understands everything. Inside the laboratory, a door suddenly opens, and a red light floods the dark corridor. The hero turns around, questioning the strange object that has appeared in the hidden chamber. As he enters, he discovers a massive pulsating brain connected to several machines. The organ glows with an eerie red light and seems alive with constant rhythmic movements. Approaching the control panel, the white-haired young man wonders if Kagura created it. While examining the console, he uncovers a hidden compartment. Inside, he finds a cube and an injection left behind by his old friend. Hoping to uncover answers, he picks up the cube. Moments later, a hologram activates, and Kagura's image appears. The scientist congratulates him for making it there and explains that this laboratory is the closest facility to where he awakened. With a serious expression, Kagura reveals that they were developing an extraordinary device. He explains that part of the device's functionality was integrated into the nanomachines themselves. Proudly praising his own genius, he asks whether the warrior can guess its purpose. Then he reveals the answer. It is a teleportation device. The hero is stunned. As he reflects on the revelation, he notices a gigantic creature imprisoned behind reinforced bars. Nearby, a circular structure emits an intense red glow, seemingly serving as the core of the entire facility. Looking around, he sees numerous cells containing terrifying monsters. At that moment, the large clock mounted on the wall begins moving strangely, drawing his attention. Studying it closely, he senses it may hide an important secret from the past. Returning to the control panel, he analyzes the data while the machine continues pulsing overhead. The information confirms that the device connects distant locations. However, he quickly realizes that creating such technology should have been impossible millions of years ago. Suddenly, he remembers Argus's warning about the monsters attacking the royal capital. Everything clicks into place. The invaders are being transported through this device. As he studies Kagura's hologram, he realizes the laboratory conceals something far more dangerous than he imagined. Without warning, a powerful blue light erupts from an activated portal directly in front of him. The equipment looks completely different from what he expected. Now he wonders what role the pulsating core plays if teleportation has already been confirmed. The clock suddenly emits a loud metallic noise, and its gears begin begins spinning at incredible speed. A violent explosion of red energy bursts through the room, releasing overwhelming pressure. Shielding himself with his arm, he struggles to understand the malfunctioning mechanism. The monsters trapped inside the cells become restless as crimson light spreads throughout the laboratory. The gigantic creature opens its many yellow eyes, looking ready to break free. A massive beam of red light erupts from the center of the facility, illuminating everything around it. Elsewhere, a female knight rushes to warn Argus that disaster is unfolding in the capital. With a grim expression, the captain admits he already knows danger is approaching. At that very moment, hundreds of monsters fall from the sky and begin destroying homes across the city. Meanwhile, inside the library, the blonde student confronts Professor Rudman, asking why he is acting so strangely. Smiling maliciously, he reveals that his plans are already in motion throughout the kingdom. Furious, the girl prepares her magic and orders him to step aside. Rudman calmly admits she discovered the truth, but claims it is already too late. Confused, she asks what he means. The professor explains that today was the day chosen to execute the grand plan. Originally, the attack was scheduled for later, but he accelerated everything because her investigation was getting too close. Watching her fearful reaction, he smiles cruelly. At the same time, the white-haired hero races through the corridors, determined to intervene. Trusting his instincts, he realizes the professor is every bit as dangerous as the corrupt king. Back near the secret passage, the noble understands that the hero is already inside the laboratory. Rudman confirms this and decides to reveal everything. Although nervous, the young woman prepares to fight and asks whether he truly believes he can win. Laughing confidently, the villain boasts that he now possesses absolute and invincible power. Dark purple smoke engulfs him as he begins transforming. The students watch in horror while he proudly announces his newfound strength. Then, in an unexpectedly pathetic twist, he is immediately knocked down. The blonde noble stands frozen in disbelief. Nearby, the animal-eared girl exhales in relief and wipes the sweat from her forehead. Celebrating the traitor's defeat, she leaves the other students speechless. The noble asks what she is doing there, and the little girl replies that she came looking for her hero. She quickly explains that chaos has erupted outside and that everyone urgently needs help. She confirms seeing the white-haired warrior enter the secret area, and the blonde is impressed by her courage, despite being only a first-year student. Worried, the noble asks whether it is acceptable to attack a professor. Her companion casually replies that it is perfectly fine. The little girl even suggests blaming everything on the noble, since nobody saw their faces during the confusion. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echo through the corridor. The protagonist arrives and immediately asks what happened to the unconscious traitor lying on the floor. He warns them that the situation in the city has become critical and that chaos has spread everywhere. More importantly, he reveals that the monsters from the laboratory have vanished. Hearing this, the blonde panics, realizing the creatures are now free. The group immediately leaves the secret area and rushes toward the city. From above, they witness a horrifying scene. Flames and explosions consume entire districts while monsters rampage through the streets. A gigantic beast attacks fleeing civilians, spreading terror throughout the kingdom. In the sky, a flying monster hunts people, desperately trying to escape. Moments later, a colossal claw crashes into the ground, signaling the beginning of a full-scale invasion. In the distance, an enormous creature stares at the capital, slowly opening its fanged mouth. It unleashes a deafening roar. The blonde noble freezes as the true scale of the disaster becomes clear. Meanwhile, the hero blames himself for not destroying the teleportation device sooner. Then, the animal-eared girl points toward the horizon and warns that something is approaching. High above the city, a gigantic monster begins charging an immensely destructive energy attack. A powerful beam erupts from the beast's mouth and streaks toward the royal castle, threatening to destroy everything in its path. The students fear for the royal family's lives, knowing the attack will be devastating. At that moment, the man in white decides to act. He injects a substance into his arm, activating the nanomachines in his body. His friend warns him that this trump card can only be used once per day. The scientist explains that the ability allows him to make short-range jumps instantly. As the beam approaches the kingdom, a blue portal suddenly appears before the girls. Shocking everyone, the hero leaps through the dimensional rift and appears in midair. Now able to teleport, he rushes toward the danger without hesitation. Meanwhile, a giant snake-like monster rampages through the city, spreading panic among the citizens. A soldier runs through a hallway to warn the guildmaster about a giant corruptor attacking the wall. The guildmaster calmly replies that he already knows. Unfortunately, there is little they can do. Every available fighter is helping evacuate civilians, while the holy knights capable of fighting are already engaged elsewhere. When the girl asks what he means, the guildmaster reveals that half of the knights are away from the capital on a mission. He realizes the enemy launched the attack while the knights were absent as part of a carefully planned strategy. Regretfully, he says that if the great commander were present, they would still have a chance. As the energy beam continues toward the castle, the soldier points desperately toward the window. Looking outside, the guildmaster's expression turns to shock. The protagonist has created an energy shield, stopping the creature's devastating attack. Watching from the window, the guildmaster and his subordinate can hardly believe what they see. The young woman recognizes him and happily says he is the man from Kodama village. The giant monster prepares to continue its destruction. Below, the hero lands on the ground, surrounded by a blue aura. He gathers an enormous amount of energy in his palm and fires a powerful blue beam at the giant creature. The white-haired warrior faces his opponent with a determined expression. The attack strikes the monster's arm, damaging it, but the protagonist realizes the creature is too massive to defeat in a single blow. He also notices that teleportation consumed more energy than expected. Deciding to end things through force, he draws his energy sword and jokingly says he will use the fight as exercise. Charging forward, he unleashes a powerful energy slash. The attack lands cleanly, causing the giant monster to roar in pain and rage. The hero then launches himself into the air to continue his assault. Although he knows the creature can regenerate, the attack has bought him valuable time. Focusing his mind, he applies the principles of nanomachines in combat. He reduces his body weight through gravity manipulation, making himself nearly weightless. Then he controls atmospheric pressure to generate wind and increase his speed elsewhere. A wounded soldier is about to be attacked by another monster when a massive fireball crashes into the creature, saving him. The newcomers announce their arrival as support. The soldier recognizes them as students from Harness Academy. One of the students thanks the soldiers for their bravery before preparing to fight. The wolf-eared students quickly find themselves surrounded by monsters and prepare for battle. Suddenly, the protagonist slams his foot into the ground, creating a shockwave. In an instant, he cuts down the two creatures, threatening the students. The students are stunned by the white-haired warrior's sudden appearance and overwhelming strength. One asks if he belongs to a lesser species, and the other confirms it. The hero rushes toward the giant colossus, knowing its regeneration needs time. However, the monster's arm fully regenerates, and it releases a powerful roar. It then fires two energy beams from its shoulders. The hero effortlessly dodges them with a perfectly timed jump. Aside from its regeneration, he realizes the monster is not much of a threat. He advances through the streets, cutting down every creature in his path while rescuing civilians. Determined to finish the battle before the giant can attack again, he pushes his speed even further. With a smile, he channels more power and rushes toward his target. Leaping into the air, he unleashes a devastating vertical slash that cracks the ground. The strike lands directly on the giant monster, leaving the multi-eyed creature confused about what just happened. In the distance, the knights watch in shock. The girls observing from a terrace are equally speechless. The white-haired warrior then charges forward at incredible speed and unleashes a barrage of high-speed slashes. Blue energy blades tear through the giant creature's body, inflicting massive damage. From above, the warrior watches the results as the energy slashes surround the monster. He lands before the wounded creature, which appears ready to counterattack. Gripping his glowing sword, the hero prepares his final strike and declares that this is the end. With all his strength, he unleashes a final devastating strike against the giant creature. The attack releases multiple energy beams that completely slice through the monster. Moments later, a massive blue explosion erupts in the middle of the city, illuminating the entire area. The blast is so powerful that it can be seen beyond the kingdom's great wall. Inside the castle, an old man and a young girl hear the explosion and look outside. Alarmed, the girl asks what is happening, while the old man watches with concern. The protagonist lands gracefully as the giant monster dissolves into green smoke. As he stands with his back turned, he hears someone wonder who he really is. 3 days later, the city is being rebuilt after the attack. Citizens wave to the white-haired young man as he watches from a window. Stretching inside his room, he reflects that despite the chaos, the damage was not as severe as expected. Sitting on his bed, he realizes much of that was thanks to the Holy Knights. Many of them had already been on alert because of the giant corruptors. Their quick response helped control the situation and protect the citizens. The academy was shut down for investigation investigation, with knights guarding the entrance. The professor believed to be behind the attack and Lord Rodman were captured. Other professors and even the principal, suspected of involvement, were also arrested. Relaxing on his bed, he thinks about how the academy is currently on break and that he only attended for a single day. However, the incident has revealed a new challenge. While he can defeat groups of enemies, he cannot eliminate all threats at once. To protect everyone from future attacks, he concludes that he must become stronger. To begin, he picks up the blue cube his friend left in the laboratory. At that moment, he hears a knock at the door and asks who it is. Opening the door, he finds the blonde girl waiting outside in an elegant dress. She explains that she has come to escort him somewhere. Smiling, she calls him Master, surprising him. The warrior asks why she is there, and she explains that her brother sent her. He wishes to thank him and discuss an important matter. When he asks if she personally came just to invite him, she confirms it. She says it would be disrespectful to send an ordinary servant to summon someone so important. As a representative of the Yultan family, she came herself, making him feel somewhat uncomfortable. The hero asks if she has stopped calling him a lesser species. The girl replies that she has reflected on her behavior. With a dramatic gesture, she says people should not judge others by appearance and should respect everyone equally. Because of that, she hopes to receive his guidance. Before they can continue, the small girl with animal ears appears at the door. The hero greets her, and she explains that she was bored and came to visit him. The blonde girl immediately becomes annoyed and mockingly calls her a potato girl. When she complains about the girl's audacity, the hero reminds her that she claimed to have changed. Soon, they arrive at the grand mansion of the Argus family. The servants welcome them warmly, and the butler asks two children to guide the guests through the estate. As they walk, the white-haired young man remarks that the children seem accustomed to the responsibility. He asks whether they were injured during the recent attack. The child assures him that they were safe because the workers protected them. According to her, everyone there is strong and capable. Relieved to hear that, he expresses his happiness. A maid then praises his bravery during the battle. Curious, he asks where she heard about his actions. The blonde girl proudly answers that Lord Argus told her. She adds that spreading news of his achievements is part of her duty as his disciple, leaving him completely confused. Turning to the children, she tells them to follow their master's example. One of the boys approaches and quietly explains that Miss Milia used to be very strict, but recently she has become much kinder. The hero thinks the change is remarkable. The group eventually reaches a large staircase and climbs toward a grand door. A blue-haired maid knocks and announces Master Jin's arrival. Inside, two men are waiting. One is an older, wolf-eared man with a stern and intimidating presence. The blonde girl's brother welcomes the hero and invites him to sit. After everyone settles down, the knight apologizes for the sudden invitation, but the hero says he doesn't mind. The knight then introduces his companion as Lord Hardin Gunslet, the guild master of the royal capital. Hardin stands, shakes the warrior's hand, and says it is a pleasure to meet him. Once seated again, Hardin explains that he witnessed his performance during the incident. He admits that if the hero had not stopped the creature, the kingdom would now be facing a national crisis. He then bows and thanks him on behalf of everyone for saving the country. However, the white-haired young man dismisses the praise. He says he only defeated the giant monster and that the holy knights deserve credit for everything else. The guild master is impressed by his humility and wonders if he truly has no greed. The hero then asks if that was the only reason for the meeting. Hardin reveals that it was not. Because of the incident, the royal family wishes to meet him. The announcement shocks the warrior. Before discussing that further, Hardin says there is something he must ask. With a serious expression, the guild master asks who the young man really is. He explains that thanks to the guild's information network, very little escapes his notice. Yet, despite his efforts, he could find no information whatsoever about the white-haired warrior. The armored knight adds that this time, there can be no excuses. The girls become visibly nervous as he asks where the mysterious man came from and what his purpose is in entering the country. The atmosphere grows tense as everyone waits for an answer. Finally, the young man explains that he was never intentionally hiding anything. Scratching his head, he admits he remained silent because he believed nobody would believe the truth. The knight smiles and tells him that if the story comes from him, he will believe it. The warrior smiles back and replies that, in that case, he should believe what he is about to hear. With a serious expression, the white-haired young man reveals that he is a human from 100 million years ago. The knight immediately recognizes the connection to the taboo spoken of in Kodama village. Shocked, he realizes that the hero is the human who had been sleeping behind the sealed door that no one could open. Although the revelation is difficult to accept, the guildmaster says he trusts the young man's words. The blonde girl then explains that the professor entered the underground ruins and opened a forbidden door. The ancient metal gate was secured by two massive circular locks. She adds that her brother and the professors witnessed the hero's power with their own eyes. The knight quickly calls out to his sister, surprised that she revealed so much. Smiling innocently, she asks what the problem is, leaving him speechless. The warrior then explains that he had been sleeping beneath that country for an incredibly long time. The reason he came to the capital was to gather information about the current era. When the guildmaster asks what kind of information he seeks, the young man explains there are two things. The first concerns the corruptors, a threat he needs to understand. He reveals that these creatures already existed 100 million years ago, shocking everyone in the room. However, they should not exist in the present age. When the knight asks why, the young man explains that it is because of the spirits. In his era, spirits were spread throughout the world and maintained balance. Massive energy towers released purifying power across the planet. The energy spread through the skies and covered the entire world like a rain of blue light. Corruptors can only survive in polluted environments filled with negative energy. Since spirits purified those areas, the creatures had nowhere to live. That is why he cannot understand why they still exist in this era. Although he does not know the full answer, he takes out a blue cube and activates it. A hologram of his friend appears and explains that the corruptors have evolved. The guildmaster is fascinated and asks if it is technology from an ancient civilization. Curious about how it works, he asks for details, but the warrior cannot provide them. The white-haired young man explains that this is why he came to the royal capital. He wanted to learn how people in this era deal with the monsters and whether any records exist. When asked about the second objective, he reveals that he is searching for laboratories hidden around the world, though he keeps the reason for that search to himself. In the end, he says both goals serve a single purpose. With a determined expression, he declares that he intends to erase the corruptors from the world. After his explanation, silence fills the room. The knight comments that it is an unbelievable story, and the guildmaster agrees. Even so, he chooses to believe it because they all share the same goal of fighting the monsters. The armored knight advises him not to tell that story to anyone else. Smiling, the warrior agrees, knowing most people would think he is insane. The knight asks the guildmaster's opinion, and he replies that if the knight trusts him, then he will too. Besides, someone with evil intentions would never risk his life to save the castle. The atmosphere immediately becomes more relaxed, and the three seem to reach an understanding. At that moment, the maid and the young boy enter and apologize for interrupting. The maid announces that the appointed time has arrived. The blonde knight smiles and tells everyone to prepare. Although confused, the white-haired young man agrees. Sometime later, a carriage races down the road toward the royal castle. Inside, the hero looks out the window and realizes he is about to meet the kingdom's royalty. Dressed in an elegant suit, he wonders whether changing clothes was really necessary. Artis tells him the outfit suits him well, and the guildmaster agrees. The girls also compliment his appearance, but he complains that the clothes make it difficult to move. Hardin explains that they will be meeting the first prince, who is currently acting as king. Appearances must be maintained, even if the hero finds the entire situation bothersome. As the carriage approaches the castle gate, he hopes to avoid any further trouble. Inside the palace, rows of armored knights wait for their arrival. Warriors of many races make up the royal guard, and all of them appear highly skilled. The group enters the throne room, where Artis announces the arrival of the man who saved the kingdom. A powerful voice orders them to raise their heads. The three visitors kneel respectfully while the white-haired hero looks up and finally sees the man seated on the throne. The figure is the first prince, Tails Kamosia, who sits with an imposing and confident posture. The young man introduces himself as Jin Shido, and the prince responds with a simple grunt. Speaking on behalf of his sick father, the prince thanks him for his service to the kingdom. He remarks that Argus informed him that Jin came from the small village of Kodama. In a mocking tone, he says it is surprising that someone so powerful comes from such an insignificant place. Then his expression darkens. Without hesitation, the prince orders Jin to become his loyal servant. He is to join the holy knights and dedicate himself entirely to serving the kingdom. The command echoes through the throne room, making the atmosphere tense. With glowing red eyes and complete arrogance, the prince repeats his order. The white-haired young man immediately dislikes the proposal, and anger flashes in his eyes. Noticing the silence, the prince asks why he has not received an answer. Hardin attempts to intervene, reminding him that they invited the warrior there willingly. He argues that the prince should not force such a decision. Before he can continue, Jin calmly interrupts and explains that he has no intention of remaining in the country for long. The prince mentions hearing that he works at the academy, and Jin confirms that the position is temporary. The prince then asks if that means he is refusing. Jin apologizes and answers yes. The prince's expression hardens. He declares that there is nothing more to discuss. Immediately, the knights move. Swords are drawn throughout the throne room as the guards prepare to attack. The prince orders the capture of the white-haired warrior. Hardin is shocked and tries to stop them, but is restrained. The prince claims that Jin is suspected of attempting to overthrow the state. Everyone is stunned by the accusation. He explains that a corruptor was hidden behind the academy's ancient sealed door. Since Jin allegedly opened it, suspicion naturally falls on him. With a cruel smile, the prince suggests that saving the kingdom may have been part of an elaborate act. The guildmaster angrily calls the accusation absurd and unreasonable. Meanwhile, the white-haired young man remains silent while countless weapons are pointed at him. The prince says he would have overlooked the suspicions if Jin had agreed to serve him. Since he refused, however, action must be taken. Artis quickly defends his friend, reminding everyone that Jin only recently arrived in the city. He also points out that he personally assigned Jin to investigate the academy and had already reported everything. The female knight suddenly realizes they were trapped from the beginning. The unusually heavy security should have been a warning. The commander of the 3rd Division and several other knights are fanatically loyal to the first prince. Even the commander of the 4th Division, a horned warrior, is part of the prince's faction. The blonde knight knows that both commanders would commit any injustice in the prince's name. He realizes that from the beginning, the plan was to eliminate the warrior if he refused the offer. The prince claims that allowing someone powerful enough to defeat the giant monster to roam freely is too dangerous. However, he declares that he is merciful and offers one final chance. With glowing red eyes, he orders the young man to swear loyalty immediately. Surrounded by armed knights, the white-haired hero remains silent. Then, with a serious expression, he says he does not understand the situation. Confused, the prince asks what he means. The warrior explains that a verbal oath means nothing. Even if he swore loyalty now and escaped later, the promise would be worthless. The prince admits that this is true, but the hero continues. Looking directly at him, he says it seems the prince only wants to force words out of him. He wonders whether the prince is driven purely by a desire for control or if there is another motive behind his actions. Then, in a firm voice, the warrior tells him to be quiet. One of the knights immediately becomes furious and demands to know who he thinks he is talking to. Smirking, the young man grabs the tip of the knight's spear and tells him to listen. With a slight movement, he applies force to the weapon, shocking the soldier. The horned commander cannot understand what is happening. The warrior stomps the floor, cracking the stone beneath him. The soldier is stunned by his strength. The white-haired young man calmly declares that he is the one speaking now. In the next instant, he throws the knight into the air with overwhelming force. The prince is left speechless, while the blonde knight rubs his forehead in frustration as the situation spirals out of control. The commander of the 3rd Division angrily attempts to use spirit magic, but to her surprise, nothing happens. She immediately orders the guards to capture him. The warrior effortlessly blocks a spear strike and kicks the soldier into the air, creating a massive impact. Maintaining a relaxed posture, he shows no sign of effort. A powerful shockwave then erupts from his body, blasting the remaining knights away. Furious, the prince orders everyone to attack. He even commands Argus to join the fight and punish the supposed traitor. Argus draws his sword while the guildmaster silently observes. However, the wolf-eared knight hesitates. Sweat runs down his face as he faces his own friend. The prince laughs cruelly and says he does not care if the target is killed. Several soldiers rush toward the hero. At that moment, the silver-haired warrior channels intense blue energy through his body and releases a massive burst of power that sends everyone flying. The prince insists that someone with such power is too dangerous to leave free, But when the dust settles, the guards are shocked to discover that their target has vanished. The captain searches desperately while the prince claims his actions are for the safety of the people. Then a voice echoes through the smoke. The hero declares that he also wishes to protect the people of this era. Suddenly, he appears directly behind the prince. Terrified, the ruler realizes that his life is now in the human's hands. With a cold stare, the swordsman warns that he has no mercy for evil people. He then asks the prince which side he is truly on. The prince freezes in fear. The captain angrily points her sword at him and demands to know what he thinks he is doing. The hero calmly replies that he knows exactly what he is doing. The female knight argues that he is resisting authority. The warrior responds that he is resisting something completely unreasonable. The wounded horned commander asks if he intends to oppose the kingdom itself. The young man denies the accusation. With a serious expression, he says they are the ones creating the problem. The guild master grows tense as the warrior explains that he would respect true royalty. He would gladly help the country if its laws were fair and its requests reasonable. He warns them that he is not the kind of person who silently accepts everything. If they insist on forcing him, they cannot complain when he resists. Then his tone changes. He says he only wants to ask the prince a single question. Leaning close, he quietly asks whether the prince truly believes everything will always go his way. Sweat runs down the ruler's face as he hears the chilling question. The hero's eyes glow blue, releasing an intimidating, magical presence. Suddenly, the great doors of the throne room swing open. Elegant footsteps echo through the hall as a calm voice announces that she heard the entire conversation. A beautiful, silver-haired young woman enters with a gentle smile and asks if she may join them. The guards are stunned and instinctively step aside. The horned commander immediately recognizes her and speaks her name with respect. The blonde knight sighs in relief, realizing she arrived just in time. Artis thinks to himself that the rest can now be left to the kingdom's powerful second princess. Charlotte smiles and teases her brother, commenting that he seems to be enjoying himself. The prince glares at her in fury and says her name with obvious contempt. The princess scolds him for not inviting her to the meeting and reminds him that he is not even their father's official representative. The prince grits his teeth in anger. He argues that the man before them is not a true hero, but a criminal who dared to defy the royal family. The captain supports the accusation and points out that he injured a knight commander. Charlotte calmly asks whether that happened because the commander acted aggressively first. The horned commander insists that the warrior was threatening the prince. The princess casually asks whether he was not simply standing behind her brother. Smiling, she turns to the protagonist and asks if that is correct. The warrior confirms it and explains that he only approached to ask a question. Charlotte turns back to her brother and points out that this is exactly what he said. She mockingly asks whether such a trivial action is enough to label someone a criminal. The prince trembles with rage, unable to answer. The princess then addresses the hero by his full name. With a graceful curtsy, she says she will not ask him to serve the kingdom as a servant. Instead, she asks whether he would help as a friend. The young man smiles and accepts. Charlotte happily thanks him for his answer. She then suggests continuing the discussion elsewhere, as the throne room is not the best place for a conversation. Using her authority, she orders the knights to escort her new friend. The captain and the guards obey, clearing a path for him. The prince watches helplessly, consumed by rage. Sometime later, a carriage leaves the castle. The blonde knight admits that the situation scared him and asks why the hero acted that way. The young man casually replies that he only went a little overboard. In truth, he sensed a strange presence coming from the prince and hopes it was only his imagination. Deep down, however, he knows that sinister feeling was real. Elsewhere, Charlotte smiles and tells him there is no need to thank her since he already helped them first. She apologizes for her brother's behavior, but the hero says it is unnecessary. Introducing herself again as Charlotte, the second princess, she asks him to continue supporting them as a friend. He agrees. When Artis questions the prince's actions, Charlotte admits she does not know every detail. However, she reveals that her brother is an extremely ambitious man with plans for expansion. Once he becomes king, he intends to start wars and enlarge the kingdom's territory. The hero immediately understands that the prince viewed him as a major obstacle. Charlotte assures him that she will not allow her brother to interfere with him again. She explains that Hardin is already reporting everything to their sick father. Then she reveals that she has no intention of allowing her brother to inherit the throne. With a serious expression, she asks if he truly believes her. The white-haired young man smiles and says that he does. During the carriage ride, Artis asks where they are going and why the princess came along. Charlotte explains that it would be rude to summon the savior of the kingdom without offering a reward. She also mentions hearing that he has been staying in a modest inn. Eventually, the carriage reaches its destination. The princess smiles excitedly and announces that they have prepared a surprise for him. Charlotte leads the group with a bright smile and proudly presents the surprise prepared for Jin. As soon as he sees it, he stops in shock. Before him stands a massive 3-story villa that resembles a palace more than a residence. Its white stone walls and grand columns shine beneath the morning sun. Charlotte explains that the estate once belonged to a noble who left the capital long ago. Since it has been empty ever since, she encourages Jin to use it as his new home. Standing at the entrance, Jin quietly takes in the sight. The interior is even more impressive, featuring a grand staircase, a crystal chandelier, and elegant gold-patterned floors, illuminated by sunlight from enormous windows. Turning to Charlotte and Argus, Jin asks whether it is really appropriate for him to receive such an extravagant reward. Charlotte reassures him that there is no problem. Since the former owner is gone, the villa would otherwise remain unused. Jin wonders whether the owner might someday return to reclaim it, but Charlotte dismisses the concern with a laugh. Even so, he feels an entire mansion is excessive for one person. Argus explains that the gift reflects how highly the kingdom values his abilities. Smiling confidently, he tells Jin to stop overthinking and simply accept it. The villa officially belongs to him now. As he explores the estate, every room seems more luxurious than the last. Even the dining hall is large enough to host a banquet. Eventually, he discovers a private study lined with bookshelves stretching from floor to ceiling. Argus and Charlotte watch from the doorway as he quietly observes his surroundings. Later, he enters the master bedroom and finds that it is nearly the size of an apartment. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he remarks that the room is far too large for a single person. Seeing his hesitation, Argus suggests hiring servants to maintain the property. Jin immediately feels uncomfortable with the idea. Looking at Argus, he admits that he already feels indebted to them. He is not used to receiving so much without offering something in return. He asks if there is anything they want from him in exchange. He would rather earn his place through action. The scene then shifts to the training grounds of the 7th Division. The area is filled with the sounds of shouting soldiers and wooden weapons clashing. Troops spar intensely under the supervision of their officers. Among them is Karina, a fierce warrior with dog ears. With a roar, she thrusts her spear forward at incredible speed. Her orange eyes remain focused as she fights with remarkable intensity. She blocks an incoming strike, the impact sending vibrations through her arms. Without hesitation, she spins her spear and delivers a powerful counterattack that sends her opponent's weapon flying. Breathing heavily, she stands victorious while the defeated soldier collapses to the ground, exhausted and drenched in sweat. Lowering her guard, Karina leans on her spear and admits she has reached her limit for the day. Another warrior approaches and hands her a bottle of water while complimenting her recent improvement. Despite the praise, Karina remains dissatisfied. Gripping the bottle tightly, she recalls their recent battle against the giant monsters. She remembers being able to handle the smaller enemies, but the strongest threats were far beyond her abilities. Frustrated, she scratches her head and wonders how someone from a supposedly inferior species managed to outperform everyone. Suddenly, a voice announces the arrival of the commander and Lady Charlotte. The training grounds immediately fall silent. Charlotte enters alongside several companions, drawing the attention of every soldier present. Walking behind her is Jin, whose calm demeanor contrasts sharply with the energetic atmosphere around him. Karina freezes as soon as she recognizes him. Clenching her teeth, she stares at the man who humiliated all expectations during the recent battle. The other soldiers also whisper among themselves, confused about why a stranger has arrived at their training grounds. Argus steps forward and invites Charlotte to take her seat before the introductions begin. Jin bluntly asks what they actually want him to do, showing little interest in formal ceremonies. Argus looks across the assembled soldiers and gives a simple answer. He wants Jin to train them. His expression grows serious as he explains that the army's current strength is not enough for the dangers ahead. He reminds Jin of Prince Tails' reckless behavior and warns that the prince is unlikely to stop after a single incident. Argus explains that a dangerous struggle for the throne is underway between Prince Tails and Princess Charlotte. Since nobody knows what the prince might do next, the 7th Division must be prepared for any situation. Standing before the soldiers, Argus declares that only warriors with unwavering loyalty can properly protect Charlotte. Karina and the rest of the division stand proudly behind him. Turning to Jin, Argus explains that because Prince Tails' next move is impossible to predict, he wants training to begin immediately. Jin quietly watches two soldiers sparring with wooden swords. A loud crack echoes through the yard as one blocks a powerful strike. Observing carefully, Jin concludes that the soldiers are not lacking in effort or basic combat skills. Across the training grounds, other soldiers continue their conditioning, performing endless push-ups in the dirt while sweat pours from their bodies. Their dedication is obvious. Nearby, Nearby, one warrior practices with a heavy training sword, his muscles straining with every swing. Every corner of the 7th Division reflects discipline and hard work. After an intense session, Karina pauses to catch her breath, wiping sweat from her forehead. Even with the natural physical advantages of a beastman, she is clearly pushing herself to the limit. Watching the soldiers train brings a faint smile to Shido Jin's face. The sight reminds him of his own past. 100 million years ago, a younger Jin spent his days running through advanced training facilities and carrying enormous stacks of tires. He possessed no magic, relying entirely on discipline and effort. He spent countless hours in the gym, building his strength on heavy machines to become one of his nation's elite agents. Back then, he trained as if every repetition could mean the difference between life and death. Back in the present, Argus gathers the entire division in the center of the training grounds. Standing beside Princess Charlotte and Shido Jin, he announces that they have invited the hero of the kingdom to serve as a special instructor and help elevate the division's combat capabilities. The soldiers react with curiosity and excitement. Many whisper among themselves, recognizing Jin as the man who defeated the giant corruptor alone. They are eager to learn from him. Karina, however, remains skeptical. Standing with her arms crossed, Jin studies the soldiers carefully. He knows that while most are willing to listen, winning over the stubborn ones will be the true challenge. Stepping forward, he calmly addresses the division. Before teaching advanced techniques, he wants to evaluate their endurance. His first instruction is simple: run laps around the training grounds. The order immediately surprises everyone. Karina openly objects, arguing that they already perform physical conditioning every day and have more than enough stamina. She steps forward and questions whether Jin came all this way just to waste their time with basic exercises. One of her comrades tries to stop her, but she ignores him. Argus immediately shuts down her disrespectful attitude, fixing her with a cold stare. He offers a compromise. If she truly believes she has reached her limit, they can change the training plan. Jin calmly removes his coat, revealing a simple white shirt underneath. Tossing the coat aside, he walks toward the weapon rack. His confident movements draw the attention of everyone present. Turning toward Karina, he asks if the spear is her preferred weapon. Confused, she nods. Jin grabs a practice spear and assumes a ready stance. Then he makes an offer. If Karina can score even a single point against him, the entire division can skip the running exercise. Charlotte and Argus watch with interest as the challenge unfolds. Jin adds that there is no time limit. She only needs one successful hit. Looking directly into her eyes, he explains that soldiers respect strength above all else. If he wants their trust, he must prove himself. Karina grins fiercely, exposing her fangs. Looking at the spear in his hands, she asks whether he even knows how to use it. Without answering, Jin begins spinning the weapon. The spear rotates so quickly that it becomes a blur. Powerful gusts of wind swirl around him, forcing the surrounding soldiers to watch in stunned silence. They have never seen a human wield a spear with such effortless mastery. With a sharp motion, Jin stops the weapon behind his back. The wind dies down. Standing perfectly balanced, he calmly waits for Karina to make the first move. With absolute confidence, he declares that there is not a single weapon he has not mastered. Now it is her turn to see whether he is telling the truth. A memory from 100 million years ago flashes through his mind. Inside a futuristic training facility, a younger Shidojin trains relentlessly with a spear. Rows of advanced exercise machines fill the background. Sweat drips from his face as he practices countless precise strikes. Nearby, Kagura quietly watches. Jin maintains a low stance, moving through another exhausting drill before finally stopping to catch his breath. Kagura approaches with a drink and jokingly asks whether training is the only thing his best agent does for fun. He tosses the drink over and Jin catches it without even looking. The scientist points out that even the most dedicated soldier needs hobbies and rest. As Jin drinks, Kagura reminds him that being the country's strongest asset does not mean he should work himself to death. Jin wipes his mouth and shakes his head. He explains that infiltration missions are unpredictable and that he must always prepare for the worst-case scenario. In his mind, he recalls situations where he had to fight armed enemies using nothing but ordinary kitchen equipment. To him, any object can become a weapon if used properly. Gripping his spear, he emphasizes that survival depends on mastering whatever tool is available. Kagura studies his determined expression and realizes that no argument will ever convince him to slow down. Instead, he promises that one day he will invent technology powerful enough that Jin will never have to struggle for weapons again. More than anything, he wants his friend to return safely from every mission. Back in the present, the sound of wood striking wood echoes across the training grounds. Jin and Karina clash at incredible speed, their spears colliding repeatedly. Karina lunges forward with a fierce growl, aiming directly for him. Jin barely moves. With a slight shift of his body, he redirects the attack effortlessly. His expression remains completely calm. He watches every movement she makes, predicting her attacks before they happen. The spears collide again with a loud crack. The force sends vibrations through the training grounds, drawing everyone's attention. Jin counters and forces Karina backward. Unlike her, he relies entirely on flawless fundamentals refined over millions of years. Suddenly, Karina freezes. The tip of Jin's spear rests just inches from her throat. Her eyes widen as she realizes how easily he could have ended the match. Jin lowers his weapon and calmly points out a simple fact. This is her 15th defeat in a row. Despite all her efforts, she has not managed to land a single hit. Karina grits her teeth in frustration. A low growl escapes her throat as she struggles to accept that a human has completely outclassed her in front of her own soldiers. Karina demands another round and charges again, her attacks becoming increasingly reckless. Her spear cuts through the air, driven by frustration rather than strategy. Shido Jin effortlessly deflects the strike with a small flick of his wrist. He doesn't even need to move his feet to avoid her attacks. The force of the swing stirs the air around them. Remaining calm, Jin waits for her to regain her balance. After overextending, he admits that her speed and reflexes are respectable, offering rare praise in the detached tone of an instructor. Karina screams and unleashes a powerful overhead strike, pouring all her remaining strength into a final attempt to break through his defense. Jin blocks the attack, the impact echoing across the training grounds. He acknowledges her impressive strength, but points out that power alone is not enough to win battles. At the same time, he realizes she possesses physical abilities that far exceed those of ordinary humans. For a moment, he wonders if this is the true strength of what people call evolved humans. A sharp glint appears in Jin's eyes as he decides to end the match. He immediately spots the flaws in her stance mistakes, hidden by her own pride. With a lightning-fast counterattack, he strikes her spear and sends it flying from her hands. Karina falls to the ground as her weapon skids across the stone floor. Standing over her, Jin calmly declares the duel finished. While he remains relaxed, she struggles to catch her breath. Karina tries to stand and insists she can continue fighting. Jin immediately rejects the idea, telling her that continuing is pointless in her current condition. Turning away, he delivers a harsh lesson. Her stamina is insufficient for a real battle, and her performance deteriorates with every passing minute. Karina can only watch him walk away while gasping for air. Behind her, the rest of the 7th Division remains silent, stunned by what they witnessed. As he walks, Jin analyzes her fighting style. She relies almost entirely on natural talent and physical gifts, making her techniques predictable to a trained fighter. He realizes that the warriors of this era depend too heavily on spirit magic and have neglected their physical foundations. To him, this is a serious weakness. His thoughts drift back to the warriors of his own era, where survival depended on relentless training and real combat experience. The standards of strength back then were on a completely different level. Stopping, he looks back at Karina and gives his first official instruction. If she wants to become stronger, she must rebuild her stamina from the ground up. Karina lowers her head in frustration. The humiliation stings, but she cannot deny the gap between them. Jin extends a gloved hand and asks if she can stand. His expression remains calm, as if the entire duel had merely been a warm-up. Karina looks at his hand and then at his face. Only now does she realize he isn't even sweating after defeating her 15 times in a row. At that moment, she finally accepts his superiority. Jin remains composed while Karina wipes the sweat from her forehead. All traces of arrogance have vanished. She can no longer deny that he operates on a completely different level. Taking his hand, she rises to her feet. The gesture becomes a silent acknowledgement between teacher and student. Jin then turns toward the rest of the 7th Division, who have been watching in complete silence. The atmosphere has completely changed. The mockery and doubt are gone, replaced by focus and respect. With a simple command, Jin officially begins their training. He orders everyone to start running. Soon, the sound of dozens of boots striking the ground fills the training field. As the sun sets over the imperial capital, a crow flies across the orange sky. Beneath the peaceful scenery, darker events are unfolding. Prince Tails walks through the damp corridors of the royal dungeon, carrying a lantern that casts long shadows across the stone walls. His expression is cold, and calculating. Arriving at a heavy iron gate, he orders the guards to open it. The rusty door screeches as it swings open. Inside sits Lord Rodman, bound in chains. He raises his head when the prince enters, narrowing his eyes against the light. A twisted smile spreads across the old noble's face. He remarks that someone important has come to visit him in prison. Prince Tails calmly stands before the cell and explains that he simply wanted to talk. Rodman shows no fear and waits to hear what the prince wants. Scoffing, he claims there is nothing left to discuss. Whether he has accepted his fate or is hiding another plan remains unclear. Tails chuckles darkly and comments on how relaxed Rodman seems despite his circumstances. He asks whether the old noble is still relying on some hidden scheme. Leaning back, Rodman cryptically suggests that the royal family's future is not as secure as it appears. He confidently declares that the royal family will eventually fall, whether he escapes prison or not. Prince Tails merely smiles, his red eyes shining with interest. Placing a hand over his chest, he mockingly dismisses the warning. He then reaches into his cloak and pulls out a strange purple pendant emitting an eerie glow. Holding it up, he asks whether Rodman's confidence comes from this artifact. The color immediately drains from Rodman's face. Staring at the pendant in shock, he demands to know how the prince learned of its existence. Tails smirks and asks if Rodman truly believed he was the only person aware of the secret. Behind the prince, the ghostly image of a corruptor appears, connected to the pendant's power. Tails identifies it as an invasion tool, an artifact created to seal and manipulate dark forces. Prince Tails states that Lord Rodman most likely used the invasion tool to trigger the recent incident. His voice remains calm, but the threat behind his words is unmistakable. For the first time, Rodman begins to sweat, his confidence starting to crumble. Tails tells him to relax because the real discussion has only just begun. He points out that Rodman clearly despises the current royal family and then proposes an alliance. Why not work together and reshape the kingdom? As he speaks, Tails imagines the capital consumed by flames. He believes his father and Charlotte are too weak to rule and that the nation is destined to decline under their leadership. Rodman is shocked and asks whether the prince truly intends to destroy his own family. Without hesitation, Tails confirms it. In his eyes, the kingdom must be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. He intends to create a new empire ruled by his authority and protected by an army of powerful knights. To achieve that goal, however, he needs the invasion tools hidden by Rodman. It is an offer of power in exchange for cooperation. Rodman considers the proposal before accepting. He says he has no objection to the plan, but expects a suitable reward for his assistance. Holding up the glowing purple pendant, Tails reveals one condition that cannot be negotiated: absolute loyalty. Rodman repeats the word mockingly, questioning why an oath matters. Tails calmly explains that he has no intention of being betrayed after setting his plans in motion. Privately, Rodman laughs at what he believes is the prince's naivety. He fully intends to use Tails for his own goals and discard him when convenient. Pretending to be sincere, he claims he would never betray the royal bloodline. Convinced that his lie is flawless, he formally swears loyalty to Prince Tails and reaches toward the pendant. To him, they are merely empty words exchanged for freedom. A predatory smile spreads across Tails' face. As the oath is spoken, he asks Rodman to repeat it one final time. Suddenly, the pendant erupts with violent purple energy. Dark magic explodes outward, surrounding both men. Rodman's eyes widen in horror as the power strikes him. Too late, he realizes that Tails was never asking for a simple verbal promise. A painful cry escapes his lips as the magic invades his mind. Glowing runes circle his body, binding his soul to the oath he just made. Tails then reveals the invasion tool's true ability. Anyone who speaks specific words while under its influence becomes affected by a powerful mental compulsion. The magic is absolute, even if the oath is spoken as a lie. The tool rewrites the target's mind until they genuinely believe those words. Rodman's free will is slowly erased. When the purple light finally fades, silence returns to the dungeon. Rodman collapses to his knees before the prince. When he raises his head again, his eyes glow with an empty purple light. Addressing Tails as "my lord," he has completely lost his own ambitions and now exists only to serve. Prince Tails turns and walks away from the cell, his cape dragging across the stone floor. Behind him, Rodman remains kneeling in submission, his mind reduced to an extension of the prince's will. As he leaves, Tails declares that Rodman and everyone else are nothing more than pieces to be used however he sees fit. Later, Tails crouches before the obedient Rodman, illuminated by the warm light of a room nearby. He dismisses both Princess Charlotte and the other nobles, insisting that neither has the right to rule. Meanwhile, as the sun sets beyond the horizon, Shido Jin leads the 7th Division through a demanding training run across the stone courtyard. start. Behind him, Karina and the other soldiers push through their exhaustion. From a distance, Charlotte and Argus quietly observe the training session.